question relating to a listing we have with the seller. The seller and the buyer kind of became friends during the conversation about the buyer moving to the Seattle area and stepping into their shoes and running the business. And it got to the point where the seller didn't want us to communicate with the buyer anymore. And we didn't know what was happening with the deal. It was supposedly going to close in October. And so in commercial real estate, there's typically a clause in a listing agreement that all negotiations are to be through the broker. Is that your experience with business brokerage as well? So that we can sort of call foul on that somehow without pissing off the seller too much?
Well, your confidentiality agreement usually has language in there about communications going through the broker. Once you've had your initial, there are some brokers that want to be involved in every communication. There are also some brokers that once you've had that initial meeting, the initial buy-sell meeting, then at that point it's like, okay, buyer, if you have questions about the operations of the business, go ahead and contact the seller directly with the seller's consent. And so, because if it's specifically about the operations of the business, a broker doesn't necessarily need to be involved in every single conversation there. However, when it comes to negotiating purchase agreement and all of that, that must go through the broker, period. There should be no discussions, no side discussions about that. So it's uncommon for a seller, and really that would be a huge red flag to me if a seller told me to stop communicating with the buyer. One of the things that I do tell buyers and sellers when they do have operation meetings or questions like that is I say, hey, look, you guys are free to communicate directly. I don't about the operations. I don't have an issue with that. What I do request is that you copy me on all emails. Just copy me so I'm in the loop. I know what's going on. But that's it. Other than that, you can do that. So yeah, I would be concerned though. I would be really concerned. I think I'd have a sit down or have some type of meeting with the seller and just be very candid about it and just say, hey, I need to understand why you don't want me communicating with the buyer, because my experience has been that when one party or the other stops communicating with me or wants me to stop communicating with the other, it's because they're trying to work some kind of side deal.
Right.
And that's just not acceptable.
Yeah, we're having that conversation later today, so I could give you an update maybe the next time around.
Yeah, well, good luck with that. Those are tough conversations. And you've been working that for a long time now. It's been several months, right?
Right. And with this particular seller, it's been a couple of years to try to get him to give us financials and be ready to move forward. And then with this particular buyer, it's a franchise sale. So the buyer needed to be approved by the franchisor, and the franchisor needed to see the executed purchase agreement.
Yeah.
And so there are all these like moving parts, and we've been kind of shut out a little bit on that. And then it also limits our ability to help solve problems like financing problems, contractual problems,
Right.
details of the negotiations. And so I don't want to be excluded. I want to be more involved, not less involved.
Yeah. Well, and I can tell you my experience with franchisors has been that they typically will not deal with the broker. They're very you want to try and get information, and the thing is, what a lot of them do is they want to talk to the buyer, but they're going to try and convince the buyer into buying a new franchise as opposed to the existing, because the franchisor makes more money that way. So that's why they don't want you as a broker involved in it, because they're trying to take your client. They're trying to disrupt your deal and convert it into a new franchise sale. Not all of them are that way, but a number of them are. So yeah, but I would definitely get back involved. And the other thing too is, again, with the buyer, you definitely want to get the buyer on the phone and say, hey, let's move this forward. Let's put together an offer. The buyer is making the purchase offer to the seller can accept, reject, or counter, typically.
Yeah, here the seller actually prepared the offer. So, that's
it's a little weird.
Yeah, well, I'll let you know what happens. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.